Hello, 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 wherever you are in the world. Let's rock and roll. Okay, we're just letting everyone in the room. So, where are you all from in the world? Where are people coming from? I can see we've got lots of people tonight, which is fantastic, from all over the world. It always excites me that we get to choose and speak to people all over the world. One of the things I'm most grateful for is our international community. And so, yeah, chuck it in the chat box. Let me know where you're coming from. It is the most beautiful day here in South Africa, which is where I am. And it's absolutely amazing for me that summer seems to be starting to come. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not naive. I'm sure there'll be a lot more cold patches before now in summer, but it is wonderful to have a hot summer's day. So I just want to check here quickly in the chat box. Can you all chat? Panelists can chat. Yep, we're seeing Stellenbosch. Okay, cool. Okay, great. So it is working for everyone. You can all hear me loud and clear, sound, visuals, etc. Perfect. So welcome to everyone from all over, wherever you're coming from. Right, before I get started, I have an apology to make. Yep, not many masterclasses that you start or join will start with an apology. My apology is that I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and I get super, super excited, and I always want to share and always want to teach people. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had a number of people come to me and literally say to me, Scott, you know, you're teaching us, you're educating us, but, you know, quite frankly, I just want the results. So I tell you what, don't spend 60 to 90 minutes teaching me something and then tell me at the end how I can get involved. Just tell me what you're doing, because I don't even know what you're doing at the moment. I don't even know the options that there are to work with you, etc. And so the team and I sat down and we said, right, well, if that's the case, there's certain people where time is very precious to them. They don't have time to go and, you know, watch webinars and all that, and they actually just want the results, like right there and then. So my apology is for those people that are time poor and that actually just want the answers straight away. So that's what tonight is all about. There's not going to be much teaching going on. It's literally going to be, what are the solutions on the table and how can you get access to them? Now, we talk a lot about GDPI. What is that in simple terms? And this is the formula. This is our golden formula, because we believe that most people, if you look at freedom, equate it to globally diversified passive income, GDPI, globally diversified passive income. And as you can see, that literally sits in the middle. What you need to do from a diversification perspective, you need to diversify across countries, currencies, assets, partners, and time. And so I want to ask you a question. And this is where we're going to get practical. And if you've done any work with me, particularly in the one-to-one space, you'll know that I always like to get practical. So let's focus on the outcomes. If we were to take the next 12 months, what are top 3 things that you'd want to achieve in 12 months? And literally take a piece of paper. I just happen to bring one along so you could, you know, do it as an example. And literally just jot them down. I'm going to give you a minute. Just 12 months from now, in the space, I mean, you can write anything you want down, but in the space of money, investment, wealth protection, you know, passive income, etc., what are 3 things that you would like over the next 12 months? Want to chat them, put them in the chat box, go for it. Always useful, nice to see engagement from others, but obviously sometimes people might say it's private and they don't want to, you know, share it. That's fine. I got no problem with that. That's your choice. Okay. So Alex has put down diversified income stream. Phil has put down passive income annual by the end of 2024. Perfect, Phil. So it's amazing the power of clarity. Now, if you're clear on your top 3 things, and again, let's be frank. Let's assume that you and I work together in a one-to-one environment. we'd get you very clear on these. Like you'd literally be able to take these straight off the top of your head, completely clarity. We've got a whole bunch of procedures and ways to do that, systems that'll help you achieve it. So I can see that Jane's got income generation, business opportunity, passive income. Now the question is, let's just take Jane as an example. If she's clear on the 3 things that she wants, I always turn around and say, okay, well, if those are the 3 things you want, what would stop you getting them in the next 12 months? It's interesting because we get clear on the 3 things you want. And then the reversal to that is, well, what would stop you? And I always say to people, well, you know yourself better than I do. So what has been your patterns in the past that are going to stop you? And again, just take some time. Sometimes I hear things like procrastination. I'm too busy. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have the knowledge. I have analysis paralysis. I don't know what to do. Life, gets in my way. The business isn't going well. The economy's bad. The blah, 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 blah. What's health? Health's the one that comes up. Having the initial money, not being ruthless enough. Sometimes, there's one of the gentlemen that joined the mastermind, and he was, he said, I've been following you for 10 years, Scott, and I've done nothing, and I actually just need someone to kick me up the butt. Accountability. So let me just give you some outcomes that I believe resonate and what people that I work with get a lot of value out of. The first one is diversify. They want to diversify. It doesn't matter what country they're investing in or live in, they want to diversify. They want to build globally diversified passive income. We call it GDPR for short. They want to have different levels. Some people want to have $5,000 passive income. Some people want to have $10,000 passive income. Some people want to have $25,000 passive income. Phil earlier on had a number, and everyone has their own number. And some people say to me, is that monthly or yearly? Depends. Depends on what your goals are. They want to learn directly from leading authorities in each asset class to gain the international knowledge, so they get the knowledge and then be able to get access and partner with them. I often find that the people, successful people are very time poor. And so they want to use their limited time to get effective results. They want to achieve a desired outcome. At the end of the day, they want to have a desired outcome and a desired time frame with predictability. They want to be held accountable. They want to have an accountability partner to be able to get results. Again, you'll often find that top performers or A players, love to be held to account, love to have an accountability partner, because that really helps them generate significant momentum. They want to have a family office to help them manage all their financial affairs. So rather than talking to 20 different chiefs, have one chief. As Roger Hamilton always says, there's plenty of information on the internet, but we all need direction. Have one partner steering our financial ship and helping us with our financial affairs. And finally, get results. Now, if one of these resonate with you, or possibly all 8 resonate with you, then I highly recommend that you keep listening, because this is what has been created, why it's being created, and most importantly, who it's being created for. So next week, I'm running a results masterclass. Yes, I'll go back to my teaching, and I've had the privilege of working directly with Tony Robbins. I actually got the rights for Business Breakthroughs Africa, which was Tony Robbins in Africa. And I personally got trained by Tony Robbins, who is literally, according to Accenture, one of the top 50 most influential people in the world. He's one of the most respected performance coaches in the world. He's literally worked with the best athletes, the presidents of the world, the best business people, you name it. And what's fascinating is I got trained by him personally, and I got trained by Chet Holmes personally. Chet Holmes doubled the sales of 50, yes, you heard me right, 50 of the Fortune 500 companies. And what we'll do in Results Masterclass is we'll be running through the 7 steps to maximum impact, the keys to leadership, the 6 human needs, the skill of decision making, the formula for happiness, and the scientific way to get results. And that will be a learning session from a masterclass. If you're interested in it, just type in there results masterclass, and the team can share with you the details, or if you're watching the recording, click on the link below. So I want to share with you some personal lessons from my perspective. So the first one is I'm 22 years old, and I'm a big believer in, I was very, what do you want to call it? Competitive person. And so always at school, I wasn't the smartest person, but I definitely worked the hardest. At university, I wasn't necessarily the smartest person, but I worked the hardest. On the rugby pitch, I wasn't the most talented, but I definitely was the fittest. And what was interesting to me was that, I go to London, I'm 21 years old, and at about 22, I read a book called The Road Less Traveled. I've never really thought that I sort of fit in a box of normality. And so this book appealed to me, and it sort of said you've got 2 choices in life. You can kind of wait for things to go wrong and then have someone come in and try and help you, particularly a psychologist. Or you can be proactive and you can create the life that you want. And you can not try and do it on your own. You can go and seek experts or authorities or mentors or guidance or whatever to help you achieve it. And so I, at a very young age, 22 years old, went out and I met this lady. I was in South Wimbledon in London, and I went to go and meet this lady, and she was in I don't know how to say it nicely, but in a fairly shitty house in a fairly shitty neighborhood. And I told her my dreams and my aspirations and what I wanted to achieve and how I idolized the likes of Richard Branson and she went, "Scott, you're setting your dreams too high." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "And if your dreams are too high, you're probably going to have, low values as well. And so I'd pull back on your dreams." And I remember walking out of there like so disillusioned, like this is ridiculous. Who's this lady in a shitty house in a shitty neighborhood to tell me, what I should or shouldn't be doing? And I then found Tony Robbins somewhere along the lines in the very near future. And I started to understand how coaching worked. And what I realized was there's a big difference between a psychologist who's there to kind of fix the problems of your past and, equally to temper your, so that you don't get too excited, and a coach that's a high performance coach that's there to be your mirror and to help model you, to hold you to account, and at the end of the day, help you get better results. And so the research out there is phenomenal. I mean, you can literally look at all the different research there. 99% of individuals who've had a coach report them to be helpful. 95% report them to be very helpful. 96% report they would use them again. The average person sees an investment of 344%, whereas the average business sees a 700% return. And it generally increases productivity by 30%, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what's so interesting for me is that I've had coaching my whole life, well, literally since I was 22. And yet most people, when I talk to them, I'm like, "Do you have a coach?" And they're like, "No." And they're like, "I don't need a coach." And I'm like, "Really?" Like, that's fascinating to me. Because, if you look at the research, according to Harvard, you've got a 400% better chance of getting results with a coach than going on your own. Again, I use an analogy like Man United or Liverpool, or, I'm not into the, whatever sports team it is, the Springboks, the All Blacks, whatever sports team it is, the best teams in the world, but quite frankly, even the worst teams in the world, they all have coaches. The best and most successful athletes in the world, whether it's Andre Agassi, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, they all have coaches. The best business people in the world, they all have coaches. And even the best businesses in the world, they all have coaches. And so when you look at that and you look at all of these successful people all over the world, and then we as individuals turn around and go, "I don't need a coach." And I was like, it makes no sense. So I had the privilege of going to Necker Island, and we were invited with 25 people. So you can actually see in this picture, there's Richard Branson sitting there. One thing you'll always learn about Richard Branson, no matter how much money this guy has, no matter how much success he has, 400 companies is what he owns, 8 of them billion-dollar companies in different sectors. And yet he is here with his book and his notepad, learning like everyone else. And there might be another person you recognize there, which was me, literally sitting here and learning, and everyone's taking advice. Because what was fascinating is that 25 incredible entrepreneurs got together, and each one of us had a project to come and deliver and to add value to the rest. And so it was a collaborative learning experience. And so this here was the example in 2020, this was 2015, this was 2016. I got a better picture here from the back of the room. Each one of us had to turn up and we had to explain one life hack. And I remember every single one of these people had coaches. They all had business coaches. Most of them had gym coaches. And I remember like coming along and saying, well, what about a relationship coach? And most people had never even thought of that or heard of it. And it's just a good example of any area of your life where you're wanting to outperform normality, you can go and get a coach in terms of the process. And so this was this massive epiphany moment for me, where not only for the average person in the street, but again, even for some of the most successful people. I mean, this guy over here, where's he sitting there? He sold his business for $800 million. Amazing guy. This guy over here, he was 32. He was worth about $50 million. He used to take people to Necker Island, you know, like for holidays, his friends, like he was doing his birthday on Necker Island, etc. I mean, just the most incredible people. And it sort of brings me to, you know, masterminds, because what I then learned was that actually the power of a coach is incredibly valuable, but being in a like-minded group of people like that is off the charts, like amazing. And it really just pulls you in the right direction. And so from 2011, I had my first experience in 2011 where I got invited by Roger Hamilton into the Crystal Circle Mastermind. And that was sort of, you know, top entrepreneurs from all over the place around the world. And it just was the most incredible learning experience that I had. And when I did it for the first time, it cost me $14,000 a year. And I got such phenomenal results from it so quickly, hiring the right people, launching my book. Funny enough, this book, you know, came from Roger Hamilton, learning about crowdfunding, launching Wealth Migrate, you know, going from Australia into America. I could go on and on and on. That, you know, people go, $14,000 sounds like so much money, but not if you get it back like 10 times over. And so on the back of that, you know, I joined Singularity University. I joined Mavericks, which was the top group of entrepreneurs, which is how I got to Necker Island. You know, that cost me $40,000. And then the most expensive one I paid for was Tony Robbins' Business Mastery. That was $50,000 a year. And I mean, you can see me here on Fiji with Tony Robbins. There were only about 30 of us on Fiji with Tony Robbins for a week. This was us on Necker Island for over 2 weeks, 2 different weeks at a time. And I just realized that the power of a mastermind, the power of the collective group is insane in terms of how it drives you forward. And so I basically decided, you know, that I always wanted to put myself in the room where I'm the poorest, dumbest person. Yes, you heard me right. It's uncomfortable. It's not nice. None of us like it. But if I can be in the room where I'm the poorest, dumbest person, I can only go up. That was my breakthrough. And so we decided, and I want to share with you why we created the mastermind. Because the other thing I learned with Tony Robbins, and if I go back to this screen, I'm a top producer. I'm someone who likes to get results. I'm someone who likes to go straight to the top of the mountain. I don't really want to go to Tony Robbins' one course that then gets sold into another course, that then gets sold into another course to finally get to the top of the mountain one day. I'm the sort of person who just wants to go straight to the top of the mountain. And so the logic with our mastermind and the logic with even this presentation tonight, I want to share with you what the top of the mountain looks like. I'm not going to give you all the sort of layers and steps to get there. We've had a number of people say, hey, Scott, but you're not even telling people about this. Well, I made an apology up front, and this is me and the team telling you about it. And so I'm going to share with you what the Diversification 5.0 Mastermind is, what we do, and most importantly, how you can get results and whether it's something that you would qualify for. It is by invite only, and so it only is for certain people. However, let's rewind a few steps, because I think it's important just for you to understand how we got to this point. So I want to share with you quickly. I've been doing this for 20 years. 2004 was the first time I did it commercially. I have been investing since 1999 and helping other people sort of, you know, on top of my day job, but I started my own company in 2004. So call it 20 plus years. And I love sort of sitting with people and understanding their problems. This lady had property in England. She had property in South Africa. She was like, do I buy it? Do I remortgage it? Do I sell it? You know, what do I do? I want to get my daughters onto the property ladder. This lady here basically had money in South Africa, as an example. It was an RA, retirement annuity. She was like, do I keep the money in South Africa? Do I invest it overseas? Do I wait until the rand gets stronger, etc.? So I gave her a whole bunch of scenarios, and ultimately, you know, and don't worry about the graphs or the pictures. I'm just giving you an example. So anyway, long story short, I have told you already that I love getting results. And so I went along to my mom at Christmas about 2 years ago, and I was sitting with my mom, and I was like, Mom, I'm really, really irritated. And she goes, why? And I said, because I'm passionate about getting results, and I'm passionate about getting results, not only for myself, but for others. And, you know, I just feel like people aren't getting enough results. And so my mom said to me, well, Scott, you need to go on a coaching course. Now, I've been asked for at least 20 years, seriously, like, Scott, can you be my coach? Can you be my mentor? Can you coach me? Can you do this? I'm like, no, I don't want to be a coach. And you know, I always joke with people, but like, one of the reasons I don't want to be a coach is that if we agree you're going to do something and you don't do it, like, I kind of want to punch you in the face, like, no disrespect. I know it's a bit direct, but, you know, so anyway, I never wanted to be a coach. And my mom was like, well, if you want to get results, why don't you go and do a coaching course? And I was like, no, Mom, because I don't want to be a coach. And she said, well, Richard Branson uses coaching. And Richard Branson, for 40 years, is one of the most successful and effective leaders in the world. And he uses the coaching methodology to get the best out of people and to help them get the results for themselves. And I was like, okay, now you got me. That's a classic example of a mother knowing her son, because I idolized Richard Branson. So I was like, right, sign me up for that coaching course. So I went on a professional coaching course. It cost me a lot of money, thousands of dollars to be part of it. But more importantly, it took me 150 hours to do this accredited course. And the moment I did this course, I had a whole bunch of epiphany moments. Now, just before I tell you my first epiphany, what percentage of people, if I go back to these spreadsheets, like, I literally have understood the person's problem and I've gone and given them solutions, like in numbers and in picture format. What percentage of people do you think, just type the number, over 20 years, do you think actually took, you know, my solutions and implemented them? What would you say? I'm just interested. Chuck a number in, you can't get it wrong. Phil says 8%. Anyone else? 1%, 10%. Yeah, so it's really interesting. I don't know the exact stats, but it's definitely less than 10%. And what I basically realized is I had this epiphany moment where the problem is that here I was sitting telling people what their problem was and telling them what to do. And it just doesn't work. The way to do it is that you've got to ask great questions and they come up with the solution. You know, if I give you your solution versus you coming up with your solution, you're going to be 5 times more committed if it's your solution than if it's my solution. The second epiphany I had was you've got a bunch of people out there that, you know, all of us want to get results. And I'm out there trying to, you know, beat the drum and get people results. But actually, it's all the stuff below the iceberg. The habits, the emotions, the thinkings, the values, the assumptions, the bias, the judgments, the, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And no matter where you live in the world, you can live in England, Australia, America, South Africa, Zimbabwe, it does not matter. What's happening with the global economy is that many, many people find themselves in a waste state, withdrawn, fearful, inability to make good choices, demotivated. And the question is, how do you be in a toward state? Happy, ability to think clearly, creative, see new opportunities. And I believe there's 2 ways to be in a toward state. The first way is to be around like-minded people. To be around like-minded people that are pulling in a common direction, because you're going to motivate, you're going to inspire, and you're ultimately going to pull each other along to be able to get results. And the second thing is what we call the lighthouse formula. 95% of people are caught up in problems and drama. Most people, 95% of people, will tell you what the problem is, what the drama is, and they love to live their life in that space. However, what do you have to do? You have to get very clear on the outcome. What is the outcome that we are trying to achieve? You don't worry about the brainstorming, the action. You get clear on the outcome, and then you work your way backwards. It's about top-down approach, high-quality thinking, better quality questions. And if you do that, you will remain in a towards state. And so what I find fascinating, if you go look at the research, and there's plenty of research out there, but if you take Harvard and you even take tonight on this course, if you do nothing on this masterclass, whatever it's called, you know, in 3 months, you're going to, you know, literally not even recall 10% of what we're talking about. And that's useless. What you want people to do is be in a non-directive state. Like they've literally learned it themselves. They're empowered, they've got the self-confidence, and they've got the ability to execute on their own. And that's why we created the Mastermind. I'm not interested in telling people. I've stood on stages and digital platforms for 20 years now teaching people. And I'm sick and tired of hearing people say, oh, I heard you and I learned stuff, but I wish I'd done something. It irritates the hell out of me. I want people to get results. I'd rather work with fewer people and help them get results than listen to excuses. And that's why we created the Mastermind, so the people can be empowered and get results. And so again, I remind you of the golden formula. What is this all about? Globally diversified passive income. How do you do it? You diversify across countries, currencies, assets, partners, and time. Now, if I could share with you a system which could actually help you achieve that 5 times quicker, simpler, and safer, would that be of something to interest you? 5 times quicker, simpler, and safer. Would you be interested in that system? Yes or no? Want to give me some feedback? I'll take you to drink the water in the meantime. Great. Okay, so to those of you, I see lots of yeses coming through on the different platforms. So I want to share with you a little video, and there's a longer version, but I just want to share with you a short clip. And this, for me, I think sums up exactly what I'm trying to say.
No, this is extremely predictable. There's tons of research around it. Humans change 5 times faster in groups than they do with a one-on-one coach, consultant, or therapist in that case.
Wow.
So I started looking back at business models and people who had done this effectively over the generations. Masterminds aren't new, folks. They're not new at all. People have been doing this for thousands of years. And when you put a collection of people together who are all committed, all driven, and all so want to make the right changes happen, and you give them a leader to follow who's willing to get in the trenches with them, all of a sudden you start finding real, rapid life or business transformation.
So let's just take what he said there. There's tons of research that humans change 5 times faster in groups than they do on a one-to-one coach, consultant, or therapist. You put a collection of people together who are committed, all driven, and all so badly want to make the right changes happen, and you give them a leader to follow who's willing to get in the trenches with them, all of a sudden you will start finding real, rapid life or business transformation. And so for me, that's what the Mastermind's all about. And we could say that there's 50 steps to be able to get there, but I fundamentally believe that simplicity is power. And so there's 5 simple steps, because if there's 50 steps, you're going to get confused, you're going to get lost, and you're not going to do it. There's 5 steps. The first step is we get very clear on the outcomes. The second step, we get clear on your starting point. The third step, we build a plan to get from A to B. So we call that your wealth plan. The fourth step, it's all about execution and results. So it's about accountability, mindset, and execution. And the fifth step is all about investment. Let's go into those in a little bit more detail so they make sense for you. So let's go back to step number 1, the outcomes. So once again, I told you, I went out and I spent 150 hours becoming qualified as a certified international coach by a group called ThoughtSmiths, an international group. I run through a process with you. It takes about 90 minutes to an hour, 122 hours. And it's you and I working one-to-one. And we get very clear, what is the top 3 outcomes that you're looking to achieve? What are the top 3 measures that you're wanting to achieve? And then we write them down. And just to give you an example of that, if I was to go to this page here and to our mastermind group, you can literally go through here and you can see our goals. And you can see mine. There's my goal. There's my measure. There's my goal. There's my measure. There's my goal. There's my measure. Very, very important that you've got absolute clarity on this process. And some people say, well, Scott, it's so simple. Again, simplicity is power. Clarity is power when you get very clear on what you're trying to achieve. And again, this is the formula. We call it the lighthouse formula. It all starts. People say, why do you start with the outcome? Well, it all starts with the outcome. When we get clear on the outcome, if we're trying to decide, are we climbing Everest? Are we climbing Kilimanjaro? Or are we climbing Table Mountain? Depending on which mountain you're climbing, it's a very different plan, very different journey. So get very, very clear on the outcome. It is fundamentally the most important thing on this entire journey. And the irony is, most people aren't even clear on what they want to achieve. Yeah, you might have some thoughts in your head. They never take the time to get clear on the top three, to get clear on the top three measures, and to write them down. As an example, Christian is a coach in Germany, actually, and he's done this for 27 years. And I was quite intimidated when I was running the process, with him, with all the experience that he's got. And he actually commented back to me and he said, Scott, I love the process today, in terms of just giving him that clarity. And I've heard that over and over again from people in terms of that process. Step number two, before I go to step number two, if you take the value of the course, I spent $3,500 on the course myself. I spent 150 hours. I'm not sure what your hourly rate is, but you can times it by 150 hours. And so, I could probably, charge in the region of $5,000, if not $10,000 just for this, this section. And, I can easily justify a value of 1,997 in terms of getting clear. I often say to people, what would be the power of clarity? And, I think there's very few people in the world that wouldn't pay, decent investment in themselves to get very clear on what are their top three outcomes, what are their top three measures. So for me, when you look at the 5 steps, that's the very first thing, the one-on-one coaching, getting clear on those outcomes and that value in terms of that process. So we're sitting right now at a total value of 1,997. Step 2, though, is the starting point. So, I'm clear on where I want to get to, but where am I starting? And I tend to believe that there's 2 different parts to this. The first is that a lot of our investors are property investors and they come from a property background. So they want to analyze their properties, be it in South Africa, Australia, England, America, wherever. And they want to basically say, right, what are the properties that I've got in terms of this analysis? And I'll give you a good example of this. There's someone that joined our mastermind, and his name is Steve. He's in England, and he had 6 properties. One of them is his private home, and he had 5 investment properties. He bought them prior to the crash in 2008, 2009. And they've kind of been okay for him because interest rates were so low. But now with interest rates, rising rapidly in England, they've all costing him money, and he's bleeding cash, and it's creating him sleepless nights. These properties have kept him sleepless nights for the best part of 10 plus years because they're in negative equity. And he was like, what do I do with them? I can't sell them because I don't have the cash to be able to sell them, etc. And it's amazing. This is a good example of a coach and a mirror, is that people have the answers. He created the spreadsheet for me, not me, but just being the mirror. I basically showed him and I said, listen, if you take these properties here, so I created these columns, this one here and this one here. He had the equity, I created the cash flow. And I said, look, the bottom line is, you've got these properties here. You can literally sell off these 3 negative, these ones that are take. So many people think that property, you must have property that's, even if it's costing you money, you must keep it because don't worry, one day I'll get the capital growth. I don't have time to explain today, but wealthy people only ever invest for income. They want money into their pocket. And I basically showed him how he could literally remortgage this property. He could pay down these negative equities. He could sell off these 3 properties that are draining him. He could keep his house. He could keep these 2 cash flow positive properties. And ultimately, it was a swing of £2,000 a month. So rather than costing him money every month, he was going to make £2,000 a month. And with that £2,000 a month, if he is getting a negative return, which is what he's getting at the moment, he doesn't expect any capital growth for 10 years, plus he's got negative cash flow. And you compare it to he just invested in America through the mastermind at a 17% return, where would your life be? It's measurable where your life would be, between, keeping these lemons and, keeping some of them, selling off keeping the good assets, selling off the lemons and putting it in good assets that are getting you a return. Massive, massive power in this whole process. The second part of the starting point is our partner. It's our family office partner. So I'm super grateful and super privileged that I've worked with Callio for over 10 years, a gentleman by the name of Garth Wellman. And it was interesting because, you know, it's always been a problem for us. They manage $600 million. They've got 60 families as a family office. Their minimum investment, you know, criteria is normally about $10 million plus. And so it's always hard for me to know, like, can I, you know, introduce people or not? And so, you know, I was talking with Garth, and him and I, you know, meet regularly. And he said, you know, we see the world's changing. You know, the 1% can pay for the advice and get results, but we need to support everyone else in terms of getting access to the same advice. And I said, well, what about if you collaborate with us in the mastermind? You know, I know property, but I don't know tax and structuring and, you know, whether someone's got money in a bond or in a provident fund or a pension fund, or they've got money in the stock market and equities. And that's what they specialize in. So the beauty between our synergy is that we work together with Callio, and they help review the entire portfolio. Plus they help review the tax and structuring. And again, they're a boutique, you know, outfit. They only deal with individuals and individual families. There's no one cookie cutter fits all type process. They're not going to tell you must be in, I'm making it up, Mauritius, and then everything kind of just sits in the Mauritius box, you know, etc. And I love that, like, for me. And so I'm super grateful. It's one of the things I'm most grateful for. And, you know, if you look at it, one of our participants recently, you know, they've got about $1.5 million investing overseas. They've got a house in England, a house in America, and they've kind of been doing their best and trying to get information. And they're very successful business people, and yet, like, they've got lots of advisors, and everyone's pulling in different directions. And when they finally got introduced to Callio, he said to me, it's such a relief that, you know, now, you know, we've got sort of, you know, all going in one direction. He said, I think it's better for us to get one advisor for all asset classes. We have so much duplication between the different advisors' investments. We also just want to simplify our admin, our tax, and our structures for obvious reasons. And that'll take a while to complete. And, you know, I literally wrote back and said, that's fantastic news. Simplification is power. And they were moving everything to Callio in terms of that process. So that's really step two. And I tend to say to people, you know, what is the value of that? And it's very hard. You know, I have no idea how to quantify, you know, that meeting that I explained with a gentleman called Steve. It didn't even last half an hour, but it's really hard to quantify, you know, 20 plus years worth of experience where you can help someone in 30 minutes with a mirror. You know, I don't know what value you would actually give to that. And particularly also with Callio and onboarding, etc., having done this from a tax and structuring perspective many times before, you know, you won't get out of bed without paying someone $5,000 or whatever to start reviewing your portfolio and setting up your tax and your structures, etc. So, you know, if you take, you know, just as a you know, an idea, over, you know, just short of $6,000 would be an absolute no-brainer in terms of that step. And so once again, if you look at it, you're getting very clear on the outcomes and where you want to be, and then you're getting very clear on your starting point. And if you put the two together, the total value already is just short of $8,000 in terms of that process. It brings us on to step three. And now you've got clear on kind of where you want to get to. You've got clear on your starting point. Now you need to create a wealth plan to get from A to B. And we basically have a system to help people go through this. We call it a freedom calculator. And ultimately, you calculate exactly what you need to do. You get clear on your why, your how, and your what. And depending on what clients want, they can build it themselves. We've got the resources to support them with that. Plus, it gets interrogated by Callio to help make sure that you build something that is resilient in terms of that process. And I love this. I love this test. This is why I love what we do. You know, Cynthia sent this to me, and, you know, she was having problems with her ex-husband, and, you know, with regards to her daughter going to the University of Bath, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, you can read it all if you want to, but basically it said, Callio has me in a 3-year promissory note that is generating monthly dividends that allowed me to say, fine, despite the fact that her uni tuition is now 10 grand and less, we're paying for her boarding school, so you should be paying annually. The ability to do this was so liberating, not just to make ends meet, but to have unexpected huge hit not derail me financially. It's the first time that's happened in 10 years of us separating. Thank God for this mastermind, the partners it brings us, and the exponential learning curve you have gifted us with. And so, you know, for me, I often say to people, you know, when you've got that wealth plan and life hits you from the side, how valuable is it to be resilient in terms of that process? And, you know, again, you know, even if you took a 1-hour session to build a wealth plan, you could argue, you know, any amount of value. but let's just put a paltry number on it. And now you've got clear on your outcome, you're clear on your starting point, and you've got your plan to get from A to B, and you've got a total value of just short of $9,000 in terms of that process. What I find fascinating, though, is that 95% of the world don't even have a plan. Like 95% of the world, they've got off the bus already. They don't even know what we've just mentioned. Those 3 steps, they don't even have it. What about the people who do have a plan? And just by the way, I'm sure that most of you won't be like me. I'm sure none of you are like me, where you've had a plan and you kind of know what you should do, but you don't do it. Now, I know I'm the only one in the room that has that problem. So I know none of you have ever experienced that. I know none of you, life gets busy, work gets busy, trying to be, a husband, a wife, a business person, or whatever. Like, I know none of you have that problem. Well, what's fascinating statistically is that 9 to 12% of people actually keep their New Year's resolutions if they're written down. How scary is that? If they're written, and it's just a New Year's resolution, if they're written down, and it's less than 4% if they're not written down. And this is where I've found the power of masterminds, because it's this execution, it's this ongoing rhythm and this accountability which helps people get results. It's making sure that you stay in a towards state with a group of like-minded people that are pulling in the same direction. It's about working on the mindset. And, there's for 12 months, we run the mastermind. We're checking in every month and we're making sure that mindset's working. And then there's different modules that some people need. Some people want time management. Some people want mental wealth. Some people want flow. They're different things that, the beauty of a mastermind is you never quite know what people need. And so there's no one, it's not like a degree at university. You build it as in what people need, and you basically provide resources depending on what they need. But the most important part is the accountability tracker. I'm the type of person that when I went to university or school, I might do my homework the night before. And, what was interesting when I joined Roger Hamilton's mastermind was that, every month we had to check in. And even though I might only do it the night before, every month I was making measurable progress towards my target versus all of my peers that probably weren't doing anything for an entire year. And so to give you an example of that accountability tracker, you literally check in every month. And we've got a robot system, orange, green, red, and it's literally checking in. Boom, boom, boom. Am I getting momentum along this journey? It's critically important to keep moving the momentum and to get significant momentum over this period. And then finally, accountability coach. Myself and Alex, we've got different styles and different methodologies, but we're slowly there. We can be the carrot, we can be the stick, we can also be the irritating little buzzing bee. But what I find fascinating is that by being part of a group of like-minded people, people want to make measurable progress. It stays top of mind, and that's why people get results in terms of that process. And I've already given you the stats of the geometric difference that a coach makes in terms of the overall process. So that's step number 4. And again, if you take that total value of step number 4, and you just take coaching, I mean, any of you that have ever been involved with coaching or any quality coaches, you're looking at least $12,000 a year. In fact, for a quality coach or any sort of decent mastermind, you're looking at $25,000 plus per year. Go check it out around the world. So 12,497. I'm probably being hell of a cheap there in terms of the process, but I'm just trying to give you an example of what you would pay in the market around the world in terms of that process. So again, to remind you, you've got the outcome, you've got the starting point, you've got the plan to get from A to B, and then you've got a coach and an accountability person and someone holding you with the right mindset to make sure that you are getting the accountability, the mindset, and the execution in terms of that overall process. Total value, $21,000. Now, you get to the 5th step, and that's the step of investing. And this is the part where people's eyes light up and the magic starts. Because, what's interesting for me is that, and this is where the amazing relationship with Callio comes in. When you look at the market, I don't have time to go and read hundreds of pages of reports. And quite frankly, I don't even have the interest to go and read hundreds of pages. If you give me a 4-hour video, I'm not going to watch it. But give me the TED Talk. Tell me what's going on in the markets. Every month, tell me, why did Silicon Bank go bankrupt? What's happened with the Swiss banks? Why are interest rates going up? Are they stopping? Are interest rates going up in England or America? What does that mean? What's happening with inflation? Give me the TED Talk. Talk to me for 18 minutes. Tell me what's happening in the market. What do I need to know? And allow me to ask any questions. I've learned more in 12 months from that little TED Talk from Callio Monthly than I learned in 25 years of doing international investing and economics. And so we start with what we call the market review. Every single month we check in, Callio come along, they give us a live presentation. We analyze what's happening with the currencies around the world. We then take portfolio construction. What's happening with the asset classes? Again, this is what they do for their wealthiest clients every month. What are the different asset classes doing? What do you need to know? Are we trying to make you an expert in everything? No, it's impossible. But are we providing you the same advice that the wealthiest families are getting access to every month so that they make better and informed decisions for themselves and their families? Yes. Then it comes to the financial understanding. And this is one of the things that I get most excited about, is that every month for 90 minutes, we get a partner from around the world that has experience, decades worth of experience in an area. I'm not asking for a Harvard professor that can teach you the theory. I'm asking for people that have deep experience and are actually executing. They're not necessarily presenters, they are doers. And so they come and teach you about asset classes. We've done multifamily, which was one of the most resilient and best performing assets on a risk-adjusted return in America. We've done structured notes. We've done industrial property. We've done gold and silver, and I could go on and on. We've done medical buildings. We've done co-living. We had one of the ladies come in that, as part of the Knight Frank, the wealthiest, literally 500,000 people in the world. They call it the Wealth Report. And she gave us a full overview of what are their portfolios, how are they investing. And again, wouldn't you like to know that so you can literally copy and emulate them in terms of that process? And so that's each month. And each month you're going to learn and go deep on an asset class. And, what's interesting, if you just take some feedback here, Neil sent this to me. He said, I must say, listening to all your Zoom meetings has made a huge difference in understanding investment options. I don't feel stupid anymore when having discussions with the likes of Callio and others. Of course, I don't know enough, but at least I can follow opinions, comments without being completely in the dark. It is so liberating. How would you like to feel like that as well? Rob said mind-blowing. Chaz said very valuable. Diana said, thank you, Gary. The perspective is very valuable. Abdul said extremely enlightening. Actually, Abdul's on the call tonight, I can see. And what's fascinating is that, this guy, as an example, literally did it this month in August for us. His name's Gary Sachs. He's been a developer in London since 1988. And what's interesting is he pretty much taught all of us why we shouldn't be mom and pop investors. He's one of the most successful developers in London. And he taught us how we can invest at an institutional level, how we can dramatically reduce the costs, how we can reduce the management expenses. And most importantly, we don't have to invest like mom and pop investors with all the hassles and the low returns. And the feedback I had from so many people was, I just wish I knew that before I went and bought that house or that apartment in England. How valuable is that to you? Then you come to the investment stage, and as part of the mastermind, sometimes deals happen too quickly. This was a deal that we closed in Phoenix, Arizona. It was an industrial deal, 7% cash on cash, 17% IRR, 3 to 5 year hold. If you put in $100,000, you would aim to double that in 5 years. So it's called the 2x of multiple. And the ROI was roughly about 20%. And we closed on this in July this year. Only with our unique mastermind investors. We've got another deal coming up in Europe through Callio. We've got another one in America, and we've got the one with Gary in London. And one of the things I love about what happened and I know this is bragging slightly, and I apologize, but someone asked Gary. They said, "Well, you've got all these massive funds. You're raising £1 billion pounds. Sorry, why would you even be talking to Scott and our group?" And he said, "It's because I've known Scott for 15 years, and I want you guys to be able to invest alongside." Sometimes it's not about the money, it's about the relationships that is critically important. And so that's step 5. And if you take the value of that, and you take again the value of any mastermind, you'd be looking at least 25,000. Most good quality masterminds are upwards of 50,000. I've told you already what I paid for Tony Robbins and the like. And if you take what's involved in this investment process with the asset mastery, so all the assets we've already got, we've got a digital library of at least 8 different asset classes in there that you'll get access to in terms of the process. You've got access to Callio and that ongoing monthly advice in terms of that process. you've got the currency review, you've got access to exclusive deals. You can't put a value on that. That's priceless. Or you can travel around the world yourself and try and do it, but it's going to take you decades, no disrespect. And then finally, the review and tracking. Honestly, at $26,000, I'm probably being far too cheap in terms of the overall process. And then what people say to me is, what happens then? And any good investor, once a year, we should be going through the 5 steps, and then we should be returning back to step number 1. So if I just review that and go back, make it easy for you. You got the outcome, you got the starting point, you got the plan from A to B in terms of that process. You then got the accountability, the mindset, and the execution on a monthly basis. You got the investment and the investment knowledge, and the not only the knowing how to, but what to, and actually people holding your hand to get it done. In terms of the process, you take that total value, we're sitting at just short of $50,000 in terms of putting it all together, in terms of what we are actually looking at in terms of this process. Now, with the mastermind, we went out and we said, okay, well, there's some gaps here. There's some foundational stuff. There's some home learning that people need to be able to do, that need the substance. And this book that came out 10 years ago, Property Going Global, we decided, my partner and I, Shane, decided it was time for a digital upgrade, because so much has changed in 10 years. Not only then, this book was primarily about residential property investing. Since then, I've personally been investing in commercial real estate since 2014 and other alternative assets since 2019. And so much around the world has changed. And so we decided to launch Wealth Going Global, which is a digital course. And you'll get very clear on, which countries to invest, but specifically, what are the top 5 countries that you want to invest in? Then you'll get clear on the currencies. What are the top 5 currencies that you want to be able to invest in? Then you'll get clear on the assets. What are the top 15 assets that you want to be investing in? Finally, what are the partners? How do you find the right partners and make the right decisions for you and your family, and avoid 80% of the mistakes that all other investors make? And finally, time. How do you build your portfolio? How do you build your because 85% of your returns come from portfolio construction. And how do you build a diversified portfolio over time and have a plan to get you from A to B in terms of that wealth plan? And so if you take that whole course, it's effectively a home study course. And at the moment, that is retailing at $397. And we literally give that to you so that you've got the substance that you're looking for in terms of that process. If you take Asset Mastery, literally you've got access to the best partners. This already exists in commercial real estate, multifamily, industrial logistics, medical office buildings, office, co-living, London residential. What's coming is first mortgage debt, retail, senior living and aged care. Literally next week, we're doing the ETFs in the stock market, structured notes. We've done gold and silver. We're doing private equity in October, venture capital, and crypto in terms of the different asset classes. And again, if you take the value of that entire package, it's $1,997. And then finally, when we launched this book 10 years ago, the reason we did it was that Clem Sunter literally said, Scott, you got to write a book. He was so impressed with the 4-dimensional model I created. And so when we did Wealth Going Global, I reached out to him. And, I always believe you can go out and you can do all the work. You can go read his book. You can go read all his articles. There's hundreds of articles out there. You can try and figure out all the different scenarios and probabilities. He's one of the top scenario planners in the world. Or you can just hear it directly from the horse's mouth. You might have figured out how I like to operate. So I literally went along to him. I said, hey, we're doing this. We're doing the digital upgrade. Please, can we, get the latest information from you, latest scenarios. By the way, I don't know how to find them online because I couldn't find them anywhere. And so we literally paid him $750 to teach us. And I recorded that, we recorded that and share that. So literally that's face value. And, again, if you could get a, one-to-one with him, that's how much he charged me. And he's such a kind man. I think that's mainly because we've had this, decades worth of, a relationship together. So just to remind you what you're going to get in terms of the whole process, you're going to get very clear on your outcomes. There's nothing like the power of clarity. Then you're going to get clear on your starting point. Again, working together with both us on the property side, making sure that your portfolio is robust and that possibly you get rid of the lemons and you redeploy that capital better. You're then going to get your wealth plan. Okay, now you know where you want to be, you know what your starting point is. Oh, sorry. And with the starting point, you're also working directly with Calio and getting very clear on your entire portfolio, your tax, your structuring, so that someone at a family office level is giving you a full bill of health in terms of your wealth and your plan. And then you're getting a wealth plan. You're going from A to B in terms of that process. Now you got your plan. Well, you're 95% ahead of most other people in the world. Now it's about execution. Now it's about accountability, mindset, and execution. It's about the monthly rhythms in terms of getting momentum every single month. Then it comes to the investments, the portfolio analysis, the currency analysis, the market analysis, the financial understanding, the investings, and the review. And then finally, in terms of the homework study, you've got access to Wealth Going Global, the 6 modules, you've got access to Asset Mastery, and you've got access to Clem Sutton. I was literally talking to someone just today. What I find really interesting is that people that are the type of accountants and people that want all the detail love the home study course because it goes deep into the detail and it gives them peace of mind around what they're actually doing. That's not my opinion. That's a feedback that I've had. So if you take the total value of all of that, it's literally $51,000, $489 in terms of, you know, the overall value. Now, it's interesting because I saw Michael was actually online. I'm not sure if he's still here. Let's see if Michael's here. Yep, Michael is here. And so I met Michael 10 years ago. And just as an example, you know, nowadays you can come and you can do this digitally, but 10 years ago, you couldn't do that. 10 years ago, you came on a webinar, you came to a breakfast. And if you want to learn this stuff, you literally had to get on an airplane. You had to fly to America. You had to fly to England. You had to fly to Australia. And so I'll never forget, you know, Michael was in the room and just like, you know, hundreds of other people, he got the information and he was very skeptical. He was like, well, I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I should get on an airplane and fly overseas. I know I need to diversify. I know I want to kind of, you know, start to build a global portfolio and start to build passive income, but I don't know what to do. And it was kind of the you know, as he explains it, it's kind of the, you know, which one's worse? You know, I do nothing, which kind of I've been doing already, or kind of, you know, I'm not quite sure if I trust these oaks or whatever. Anyway, long story short, Michael jumped on an airplane and he came over to America. And I'll never forget, like, he was very clear on his goal. This is why I say, like, the power of why, the power of clarity, getting clear on your outcomes is so valuable. Because he literally went, I've got 2 daughters. I want to make sure that they've got the passive income to have the freedom to not only live where they want, but to be able to work where they want. And I'll never ever forget that. And I'm not going to mention the number, but he was actually clear on the number that he needed in terms of that process. And him and his wife went about over the next 10 years accumulating and investing and diversifying. And, you know, it's with a huge amount of gratitude that 10 years later, they literally are immigrating to England and they're going with their daughters. And, you know, again, Michael can tell me if I'm wrong here, but he's come very, very close, if not over the line, to what he wanted to achieve for his daughters, which was that freedom in terms of where they could live. And I often say to people, you know, people are like, oh, Michael's lucky. No, he's not. Hundreds of other people were given the exact same information 10 years ago and didn't take action. And, you know, on a webinar similar to this, Michael sent me a message and he said, you know, Scott, when I joined, it was the best money I ever spent. But, you know, again, 10 years ago, you would have to say, well, you know, when are you coming on your next buyer's trip and fly over and spend a week or two? And, you know, so we've literally taken everything about the buyer's trips and we've done them in England, Australia, America. And we said, right, how can we create that same experience, but from the comfort of your couch in terms of that process? And so I don't believe that Michael and Lee were lucky. I believe that they got clear on what they wanted to achieve. They took action and they literally went out and made it a reality. So the question I've got for you, and I'm not going to charge you, but just ask yourself a reasonable question. If I was to charge you $51,489, and you literally paid that, but it helped you achieve your freedom goal in a predictably, you know, amount of time, would it be worth it for you? Your freedom, your time freedom. Would you pay $50,000 to achieve your freedom goal? What about to achieve peace of mind for you and your family and to know that you were secure? Would that be worth $51,000? You're not worried about the country you live in, what's happening with a particular currency, with any particular investment or asset class. How much would that peace of mind and that security mean to you? What about, most of us have worked really hard for our money and we want to protect our money. How valuable would wealth protection be in terms of the wealth that you've created? If you could protect your wealth, would that be worth $51,000 to you? And what about your time? When I look at this, some people would say, oh, let's just use Michael as an example. Well, it's 10 years later. Yes. But if he didn't do it that way and he tried to go and figure it out himself and he tried to fly overseas and, at least we've made mistakes. Don't get me wrong. We made lots of mistakes, but at least we're making collective mistakes. So the learning curve is that much quicker. And again, if you try to do it on your own, you're going to waste decades. Forget about the amount of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, but you're going to waste decades. So if I could take your decades and reduce them, how much is that worth to you? And would that be worth $51,000? And then finally, with everything that's going on in the world, inflation going up, oil prices going up, stock market all over the place, the war in Europe, etc., etc., etc. How much would you want globally diversified passive income, where you're not beholden to any country, currency, asset, partners, or time? And ultimately, you've got the peace of mind to know that you've got a bulletproof and resilient strategy, not only for yourselves now, but for your family going forward. Would that be worth $51,000 to you? And I'm asking you, these are very, very important questions. What would these things be? What value would they be to you? So I had two choices. I've told you, I've already paid $50,000 to be part of a mastermind, physical hard cash. And we could do the same easily. Or we could make it free. And if we made it free, everyone would want to be part of it. And the problem is that then we couldn't give the bespoke solution. It's impossible. And you can't work with the likes of Calio. It's impossible. And so we tried to find the middle ground where it was affordable, but it was still an investment. We tried to find the middle ground where you didn't have to sell the business or the house to participate, but it was meaningful. You're getting the right caliber of people to participate in the process. And I've also learned that when people pay, they pay attention. So we want people that are committed to come on the journey and to get results and to work together so that they are literally making a meaningful contribution and measurably moving forward in terms of what they're wanting to achieve for their life. And so as easy it would be to charge $50,000. And quite frankly, when you look at it and the value that's been created in so many people we've helped, we could probably charge 10 times that in terms of the process. But we're not charging $51,000 because we want to make sure, ideally for me, I'd rather you've got the money to invest in deals than purely in a mastermind. We have made a decision that we're going to be charging the mastermind at $9,997. And we're just trying to decide exactly when. We've literally been running the mastermind now for 12 months. At the end of September, October was the very first month. And so we've run it. We've been working with people and very much, from the first step in terms of that journey. And the intention is to double it. And it'll either be at the end of September. It'll probably be at the end of September as we go into, the second year in October in terms of that process. However, I'm away for 3 weeks in September. And so what we're doing is for those of you who are online, those of us that have been part of our community, and, for us, we want to get people results. That's the bottom line. And so we're not even charging $997 now. We are, as I told you, going to be doubling it the moment that we get to, the 12-month mark. But the question I get asked is, 12 months ago, actually about 18 months ago, I went to my board and I said, listen, guys, I've done this coaching course. It took me 150 hours to complete it. I've been part of Mastermind since 2011. It's what I've been involved in to get measurable results for myself and, quite frankly, even for our business. And I was like, why would we not offer this for our investors? Why, for a select group of people, would we not want to help them get results quicker, simpler, and safer? And so one of our core values is alignment. And I said, well, let's live up to our core values. What about if we literally aimed to make sure that they're getting at least $5,000 plus in passive income? If they invested $5,000 to be part of the mastermind, they would effectively earn, once they've earned that $5,000, the fee for the mastermind would be paid off, and the rest they would earn forever for free. It would be complete values alignment in terms of that process. And so on the back of that, the board actually acknowledged that. They said, great. So we actually aligned in terms of that process. We're not trying to be a mastermind company. We're not trying to be a coaching company. We're trying to be a company that helps people get results by investing. And the nice thing is that quantum, $5,000, is not a huge amount of money. It's not going to break someone's bank. It's also not a small amount of money. It gets the right caliber of people in terms of that process. And what I was super excited about is on the back of that, and with that sort of caliber of person coming in, we went to Callio, and Garth and them agreed to participate. So every single person that's part of the mastermind gets to benefit from Callio in terms of experience, because they believed that it was a good threshold, a good quantum to make sure that we were getting the right people to participate in the mastermind in terms of that. So it's completely a value trade. Now, the problem is that, I'm literally working with people one-to-one. Callio is working with people one-to-one. This is not a mass market thing. It's impossible, to do it at a mass market level. And so we can only ever onboard sort of 3 to 5 people at any one time. And depending on how long it takes to onboard people and get them going, it depends on that velocity. So this is a very kind of bespoke, hands-on environment, in terms of that process. So, yes, we've made it affordable for people, but most importantly for us, it's about getting the right people. And that's why it's not for everybody. It literally is for invite only. So, if you're wanting to know and you think, right, the mastermind resonates with me. And again, to remind you, some of the reasons why people, are joining and being part of the mastermind, they want diversification. They want to be held accountable to get results. They want to earn globally diversified passive income. They want to have effective and efficient use of their time. Their time is super valuable to them, and they don't have a lot of time. They want to be around like-minded peers. They want to be, with a group of people that are all pulling in the same direction. Just like I said with, how I like to put myself where I'm the dumbest, poorest person in the room. I can only go in one direction. They want to work with a family office. They want to have the environment, and family offices have been used for centuries by the wealthiest people. Why would we not copy the same strategy for ourselves and our families? They want to build generational wealth, something that people bring up over and over again. I'm in a good place, but what about my children? How can I not only set ourselves up safely to hand this over to the children, but what about how can I even educate and transfer not only the wealth, but the knowledge to my children? And then finally, they want results. And if those things resonate, I had someone literally ask me the other day, and they said, yeah, but it's $5,000, Scott. Why don't I just go and invest that in a deal? Or, yeah, it's a lot of money. And I said, how much money is it to you if you could earn that as a passive income per month? How much would that be worth to you? It's peanuts in the big picture of things in terms of your actual freedom. At the end of the day, when you look at it, it's $5,000 versus your dream. How much is your dream worth? How much is your future worth? And so if that's something that resonates with you, how do you apply? It's not for everybody. So you can't just take out your credit card and we literally have a meeting. It's about a 30-minute meeting. You literally go to diversificationmastermind.com. Either myself or my colleague Alex will sit with you, and we'll actually understand, what is it that you're wanting to achieve? What are some of the risks that you are concerned about, or some of your concerns or worries, etc. And most importantly, do you qualify? So, as I said, this is not for everybody. Equally though, what I've found, which is really interesting, a number of people kind of self-certify themselves out of it. And we've had a number of people go, oh, I didn't think I qualified. And I'm like, no, not everyone's got $100 million. I'm being facetious. What we're looking for is the people that are truly committed, truly passionate, and you'll be very surprised. you know, the right people. And that's why we do a qualification, because what's critically important in a mastermind is that you get the right type of people. But don't self-certify yourself out. And rather book the call, have a meeting with myself or Alex, and see if you qualify. Some of you already know, this resonates for me, I qualify. Perfect. Let's just come along and make sure that there's a mutual fit in terms of that process. As I say, this isn't for everybody in terms of that process. My request is that we really want to work with committed people. Again, when people pay, they pay attention. But equally tomorrow or Wednesday or whatever day in the future, you set up a one-to-one with myself or Alex. Your time is valuable, our time is valuable. If you book a call, please just turn up on time. Let's have a quick chat. As I say, it's a very friendly conversation. I know one person said, oh, I was terrified. I didn't know if I'd pass. This is not an exam pass-fail thing. It's about making sure that we're setting people up for success. It's about making sure that the right people with the, what they're trying to achieve. I'll give you a good example. We had one gentleman that wanted to do crypto mining in Brazil. We had another gentleman that wanted to do fix and flips in East London. And it's like, that's great, guys. There's nothing wrong with that strategy, but that's not what we do. We do globally diversified passive income. And then finally, I've already mentioned, we can only onboard sort of 3 to 5 people. September already is a trouble for us because I'm away for 3 weeks in September. And so, it's really about, for us, we're trying to find a way. We work with the team. We're trying to find a way to help people who want to onboard, while it's still at the $5,000 range. We are going to be doubling it once we get to, the 12-month period in terms of that process. And we again, from a value justification perspective, quite frankly, I believe we could make it 25 without a blink. I'm part of so many masterminds where 25 is the starting price for these things in terms of that process. So I remind you again, people ask me about return on investment, and I had one gentleman come to me and he goes, oh, well, how would I work out that return on investment? And so I did the maths for him. I said, well, what are you investing at the moment? He said, well, I'm in, at something like an Allen Gray, and I'm getting 7% a month. And I said, well, if you could get 14 or 15% a month, sorry, not a month, a year. Let's be clear, a year. So he was getting 7% a year, and I was saying if you can get 14 or 15% a year, and even if you only had $12,000 in capital, so whether you're investing $1,000 a month or $12,000 starting capital, and you go and do the maths, and again, I can come back to these numbers if people are really interested, but if you literally take it and you say, right, $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year starting capital, and you were to invest $5,000 to be part of something like a mastermind that's going to help you move from a 7% return on average to a 14 or 15% return, the difference over 5 years in today's value would be $12,000. Like, who in their right mind would pay $5,000 today to get back $12,000 over a 5-year period? It's kind of a no-brainer. And this is why, I know some people are like, it sounds too good to be true, get rich quick scheme. No, none of that stuff. Literally, it's the power of numbers, it's the power of compounding, and it's literally facts. Okay, like you literally compare return on investment. What would I get if I did this? What would I get if I do that? So you take emotion off the table. That's 5 years. If it's 10 years, you're looking at, that $5,000 getting you in today's money, $57,000. 30 years, well, it gets to a huge number in terms of generational wealth. And, as Warren Buffett says, the greatest investment you can make is in yourself. And this is the reason. If you're getting average advice with average investments and average returns, you're going to continue to live an average life. Whereas if you're getting the right advice with the right partners and above average returns, it has a meaningful difference. And how much would you invest in yourself? The S&P 500 has an average return of 9% a year. But what about if you invest in SME? Me, myself, my knowledge, my access to investments, my access to information. And I can, get those returns, from a 7, an 8, a 9 to a 14 or 15 safely and sustainably over time. Look at the return on investment you've got over time. And I remind you again of how I've often put myself in the place where I'm the dumbest, poorest person. These are real numbers. This is what I personally have invested, and if it didn't work, I wouldn't keep doing it. I'm not that stupid, and I remember this $50,000 one here. where I paid it and I went to Fiji, and I think my mom literally thought I'd lost the plot completely. And yet, if I hadn't have done that, none of you would be here today. It's that simple. Because I went there, I learned measurable life lessons around how to build a business. And from there, I had this mindset that, I was selling off-plan developments at the time, and I never had any money to grow the business or whatever. And it was just something they said. I changed the way I did something. I had Roger Hamilton to help me take what I did with them in Australia. We then took that to America, and the rest is history in terms of that overall process. And again, I can explain to you how it worked, but we went from $50,000, one-off investment in 2010 to $250,000 a quarter. It's kind of a no-brainer. So I remind you back to that value or trade, alignment. Alignment for me is everything. You've got to be aligned. And when we, by the way, when we look to double the value of the mastermind, we're going to have different levels. We're going to have the 5K club, the 10K club, the 25K club, where people are aiming at different levels of globally diversified passive income. Because I fundamentally believe alignment is critical, and you've got the right people pulling in the right direction to be able to achieve it. Now, I remind you, if you make a $5,000 investment in the mastermind once off, and you earn $5,000 in passive income, every other cent you earn for the rest of your life and your family's life is for free. It's literally IRR to infinity. And so, just in terms of some of the options, there's, it's people say to me, well, how do I do it? It's quite simple. You would have that one-to-one. You would see if you qualify and if it's going to make sense for you, if it resonates for you. You would invest to be part of the mastermind. It's a once-off transaction. And then we would literally set up the one-to-one between you and I, and we get started. And from step 1, we'd move to step 2 with Calio, to step 3, et cetera, in terms of that process and how it actually works. If you're interested, literally go to diversificationmastermind.com, find a time that suits you. I am very, very busy. I'm literally off to France next Wednesday. And so if you can't find a time that suits yourself, just type in there mastermind if you can't find a time that suits you. And we would literally, find a way to make it work for you. And by the way, Michael, thanks. I only just saw your comment here. You said it would never have happened if I tried it myself. And I think that's the point, Michael. Often in life, it's not only what it costs you, it's also what you can't afford not to do. Let me repeat what I just said. We invest in ourselves. We invest in our future. We invest in our families. And a lot of people have analysis paralysis, and they kind of sit on the fence and they do nothing. And I often say to them, what's the cost of not doing anything? And, I've given you a story about Michael and Lee and his 2 daughters and what they've achieved. And that's not us. We just provided a vehicle. They got on the vehicle. They made the decisions. They took the action. Some of it worked, some of it doesn't. That's life. That's investing. If everyone tells you that everything works, they're lying, cheating, or stealing. I want to be very clear. Okay. But ultimately, you get access to information, you access to partners, you build confidence, and ultimately, ideally, you achieve your outcome. What about if you do nothing? What about if you try to do it yourself? What about if nothing happens? So I remind you how to apply. Literally go to diversificationmastermind.com and, literally set up a call with myself or Alex. We want to understand what you're trying to achieve. We want to identify the risks. We want to see if you qualify. We only want to work with committed people. So please just respect times. If you book a call, please turn up on time. And there's only ever 5 spots. And we do run a waiting queue in, particularly with September and October coming. It's going to be a very busy time, and particularly with that price increase coming, because there's a whole bunch of people that are already in the waiting queue and have kind of said, please let us know. And we're now letting them know because we want to give people the opportunity at this. And that's why we're offering it to the community before we actually do the price increase of that process. So in terms of results, you can never guarantee results for someone, because you can take a horse to water. I can take you along, and I can take the horse and I can dunk it in the water. And I can even put its head under the water, and I can hold it under the water. But the one thing I will say is that you might have figured out I'm 150%er. And, so is Alex. And we don't take no for an answer. You know, that story of Steve was a really interesting one for me, and it's quite a gratifying one personally, because, you know, he joined at the end of last year. You know, his properties were causing massive problems. The stock market was down 60%. The crypto market was down 60%. His investments were looking all over the place, and he literally went into fight or flight. And I was like, I kept getting hold of him every month. Steve, what's going on? How can I help? Should we have a one-to-one call? I don't know. I've got to work 7 days a week. I can't do this. And then Wealth Going Global came out, which was the home study course, and he went and did it. And he finally got the wealth plan. He was like, oh, wow, like it was like the light bulb, coming on from him. And then he invested in the industrial deal and, you know, in America, and it was like, oh, wow, like deals don't have to cost me money. They can actually make me money. And then, you know, credit to him. He went and did his, you know, analysis, because most of us like don't even want to know, you know, what the bad news is. And he did the analysis, and him and I sat down. Now, is he done? No, of course he's not done. We literally did this last week. But now we've got a plan. You know, he's got a plan, and he can go and start executing on the plan. And I often say, like, you know, what difference would that make in 10 years? And that's the difference of a coach, a mastermind, an accountability partner. Because the one thing about me is, like, I'm a bit resilient. Like, I don't take no for an answer. You know, we're pushing through. We're getting people results. And whether you need the carrot or the stick, you're going to get either one, whatever resonates with you in terms of that process. So I remind you of how we did in the old days. You know, in the old days, you used to have to get on an airplane and literally fly to New York. This was us. And funny enough, I think that's actually Michael standing right there. There. In terms of that process in New York, it was a freezing day. You know, this was in Times Square. This is actually us with Dr. Dolph DeRuss. I don't know if you remember this guy, Real Estate Riches. Again, this is an example of me investing in myself. I paid $8,000 to go on a 1-week buyer's trip with Dr. Dolph DeRuss in 2011. And again, we all knew that there was blood on the streets in America. And I was like, well, how do you get involved? And he literally took us, and this was us on the steps in Phoenix. We're literally buying houses off auctions, etc. And he taught us how to do it. And again, I mean, this is $8,000 that I literally paid at 12 years ago. How long is that? 12 years ago, you know, for 1 week with Dr. Dolph DeRuss. You know, this is us buying houses. This is more houses in America. This is us multifamily in Florida. Opening bank accounts. You know, the old days, you had to fly overseas and open bank accounts, and tax and structuring and hassle. And, you know, all of that's gone now. You can literally do it from the comfort of your couch, hassle-free. Say goodbye to mom and pop investing, say hello to institutional investing, and you know, forget about hassle and complexity. It's about simplicity, it's about safety, and it's about execution. And you know, what's interesting is, again, this is how we did in the old days. You would fly over there, you would sit around tables, you would learn from people, you know, different partners in different cities. This is in New York, North Dakota, where the fracking is and the oil, and, you know, some very, very sophisticated and wealthy investors that came over. Everyone that's, you know, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, knows that it's much, much easier to learn the information and to partner with people than to try go and figure it all out yourself in terms of that process. And so, in conclusion, you know, why we believe you should work with us in terms of this mastermind, there's many, many excuses. It sounds too good to be true. It's too complicated, But having done this, you know, with people in 178 countries, I've tended to find that there's 3 overriding ones. I don't have the time, I don't have the money, and I don't have the knowledge. So for me, the mastermind's being created for time-poor people. You know, if you're telling me I'm running a busy, you know, business, or, you know, I've got family or whatever, like I'm busy, it's been created for you. Because you don't have the time to go and do, you know, gather all the information and try to find all the partners and make all the mistakes. You don't. You need decades into days. You need your time to be the most effective, most efficient use of your time. And with my 20 plus years, 28 years of experience to be exact, we've literally used everything we can to condense time so that you can get the information you need, you can get access to the knowledge, you can get access to the partners in the shortest amount of available time that it will take. You know, I don't have the money. Well, back to what I said earlier, you know, sometimes I believe fundamentally, can you afford not to do this? And finally, I don't have the knowledge. Well, most people, no matter how successful or wealthy you are, no matter where you are in the world, don't have the knowledge to get started. You know, what I'm truly, truly grateful for is that as part of our mastermind, we've got the most unique, amazing community. We got people in Ireland, England, Germany, Italy, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, and they come from diverse backgrounds. We've got everything from accountants to entrepreneurs to business owners to farmers to electricians to teachers. You'll be amazed. Okay. And it's beautiful because you've got men and women, you've got different geographies, you've got different age groups, and all of us bring these unique perspectives together that help drive us in this amazing direction together. And, back to the knowledge, what better way to learn than directly from partners that have been doing it themselves for more than 2 decades, getting the information, but most importantly, to learn while doing. This is not a how-to course. This is a doing course. This is a getting results program. And so, finally, why we believe you should work with us? Well, to our knowledge, there's no one else that can help you do it and achieve global diversification. There'll be one company that'll help you get into structured notes. There'll be another company that'll help you get into medical buildings in America. There'll be another company that'll help you buy houses in England. There'll be another company that'll help you invest in the stock market, etc., etc., etc. There's no company that I'm aware of that not only has the knowledge, the expertise, and the ability to help you globally diversify across countries, currencies, assets, partners, and time. And again, I could be wrong, but certainly in my experience, everyone always wants to tell you to invest in London property because it's always the best. Rubbish. There's no one right country ever. There's no one right currency. There's no one right asset. There's no one right partner. And there's no one right time always. You've got to be diversified in terms of that process. So to remind you again of the total value of everything, literally you've got the outcome that, easily is valued at, close to $2,000. You've got the starting point, which is easily valued if you take it on its own at $6,000. You've got the wealth plan, which is easily valued at just short of $1,000. You've got the accountability, the mindset, and execution on its own is worth over $12,000. And then you've got the investment rhythms, the knowledge, and the whole bank shoot around investment. And that on its own is worth $26,000. You put it all together, plus the home study courses, and you're well over $50,000 in terms of value. And yet we literally are giving it to people who want to be part of the mastermind and also who qualify to be part of the mastermind for an affordable amount. And yet they're making an investment. They're making a financial commitment. We're getting the right caliber of people with a minimum objective, a minimum outcome of $5,000 passive income in terms of that process. And like I said to you, we're going to be increasing the value of the mastermind. We're also going to be increasing the value of the passive income goal in terms of that process. And so I leave you with a final thought. It's a saying I love from Einstein, and that's the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. I'll tell you a story. It happened a couple of weeks ago, actually. I met a gentleman and he said to me, Scott, I came to an event of yours in 2008 and you were helping people invest in property in London. In those days, we actually had managed to secure discounts. I think the building he came to had a 26% discount. And, we literally, he sat in the room, we taught him how to invest in London. We had the developers there, we had the banks and the mortgage brokers, we had the lawyers, we had everything. And, he said to me, Scott, I just wish I'd done something about it. I had analysis paralysis. I was too scared to invest overseas. So I just kept buying houses in South Africa. And I said, well, now fast forward 15 years, we're in 2023. I said, well, how's that working for you? What are you doing? He says, well, I've still got the same concerns I had in 2008. I'm still, everything's still the same. I've got a few more properties in South Africa, but I'm concerned about the future of the country. And, I'm not really earning great passive income and there's a lot more hassle and my rates and taxes are going up, my expenses are going up. And so my net, returns are effectively going down. It's a downward trajectory. And I said, okay, well, what are you going to do differently? Because 15 years ago we met and I offered you an opportunity and you didn't take a decision. And 15 years later, it doesn't really sound like a lot's changed. Like something you have to do something different if you're going to expect a different result. And the gentleman walked away and I found it really interesting because he came back to me and said, he's still too nervous. He's not sure if, investing overseas in the mastermind's right for him. And I was like, it was just this Einstein, definition that came to me. I was like, dude, you've tried your strategy for 15 years. It didn't work. You told me, not me. So tell me, don't use me. I have no problem with that. But do something different, please, because otherwise you're going to meet me in, 2038, and you're going to have the same story. And, it makes me think of that exact day, that exact investment, and Don van Rensburg went and invested in that deal. He bought 4 units for 300 and I can't remember the exact number, 20,000 pounds each. And 10 years later, 11, 12 years later, whatever the exact date was, in 2021, he sold them for more than £1 million each, every single one of them. And they'd been cash flow positive. That's the definition of insanity. Okay, is that Don did something different and got a different result. And the other gentleman did nothing different. And 15 years later, nothing has changed. And so if that story resonates with you, maybe it's time to try another way. Maybe this is new to you. Maybe you haven't tried coaching. Maybe you haven't tried masterminds. Maybe. But the stats are there. The research is there. My personal experience is there. The track record was there from others who have already achieved and got the results. And that's why we created the mastermind. And maybe for you, you've got 2 choices. You can literally, take Einstein's theory and say, yep. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to keep doing what I've always done and hope, something changes, which is the definition of insanity. Or you can make a different choice. You can say, no, I want a different way. I would like to be part of a different group. I'd like to, as I say, a leader who gets in the trenches and, can drive me, forward in terms of that process. And interesting. Michael said he bought a house for 136 and sold it 10 years later for 242. Would Michael have paid $5,000 to be able to do that again? And I'm just putting it out there. I didn't invite Michael yet. Well, isn't it wonderful to have you, Michael? But I didn't plant you, if that makes sense. So anyway, you can book an investor strategy call. Again, go to the Diversification Mastermind, book a call. We want to work with committed investors, and there's generally only 3 to 5 spaces. And these are some of the commercial buildings we've invested. This was Dr. Dolph de Roos and us sitting around an investment committee meeting, a guy called Paul Shalandra, who did really, really well. And Michael, we really, really appreciate your support. It's always fantastic. And you're a massive inspiration in terms of what you and your family have achieved. More commercial buildings. This was a buyer's trip in Hong Kong. So, I got asked today, do we only do South Africa? And I was like, no, the complete opposite. We only do first world currencies, first world assets, first world passive income. So again, just pictures of buildings. I found this, I thought I would put this in. Justin said something, he did one of our courses recently and joined the mastermind. He said, Scott and his team deliver clear and easy to understand content. The course delivers loads of eye-opening lessons, which revisited in every module, drumming into us the information so it sticks. This is Wealth Going Global. Doing the course has definitely been a turning point in my road to financial freedom. For the first time, I feel like I have direction and a team to back it up. And he actually joined the mastermind. Victor said, I enjoyed the exposure to all the detail, information in each of the sections. The information in each section was way beyond what I expected and had any knowledge of. In short, I was blown away. Once my eyes were open to the wealth of information and opportunity through the platform to access these markets. I have always wondered how to access these markets. Now I know how it all works and how to be financially free. Thanks, Scott and the team. Neil said, I've read this to you already, but I must say, listening to all your Zoom meetings has made a huge difference in my understanding of investment options. I don't feel that stupid anymore when having discussions with the likes of Callio and others. Of course, I don't have enough, but at least I can follow their opinions and comments without being completely in the dark. It is so liberating. Cynthia, Callio has made a three-year promissory note that is generating monthly dividends, which allowed me to pay unexpected costs with ease, which was so liberating. Thank God for this mastermind, the partners it brings us, and the exponential learning curve you gifted us. Thank God for the mastermind. Sorry, that's a repeat. We need to get rid of that repeat in terms of that process. And then finally, Gerard said, I learned more in 6 weeks than I learned in 20 years in terms of that process. And there's many, many more. If you ask us, we can send you, many, many, many more. Maybe, Shane, you can even just chuck in the testimonials. I should probably have a link here with the testimonials that people can go and look at. And again, just to remind you of what Michael has said live today, actually, many, many times. But when I joined, it was the best money I ever spent. And I think it's the overriding thing is, people who invest in themselves and their progress tend to get much faster, measurable progress than those that don't invest and try and figure it all out themselves, make all the mistakes. It takes decades, in terms of that process and how you do it. So I leave you with an African proverb. And it literally says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And, for me, when I look at it, you've really got two options. You can do it on your own. You can continue to do what you've always done, or you can try a different strategy. I did open with an apology, and I said, I'm really sorry. I hadn't actually shared this. It's been like our best kept secret. We got this incredible community, and the feedback that we got from others was, just tell us about it. Don't put it all into an education sequence, whatever. Just tell us about it. So I didn't expect to spend an hour and a half on it, but hopefully you got a good idea, good detail, for those of you who really want to understand it. And for those of you that it resonates with, again, sorry, just thank you in terms of your time. There's my details. If you want to send me an email, go for it. I wouldn't recommend it. Send me a WhatsApp. It'd be much better. But, to finish off, that's the next step. If you're a decision maker, if you're an action taker, someone where you resonate with diversification, with accountability, with passive income, with efficient use of your time, with like-minded peers, getting access to the family office, with generational wealth, and with results, then, I recommend, booking a call at diversificationmastermind.com and go and book a call with us in terms of that overall process. And again, to remind you of the overall value, it really does feel a bit, like a steal in terms of what we're offering, which is why we've got no problem doubling it from 5 to 10. But we do want it in our first year to really deliver value. It's a classic case of trying our best to underpromise and overdeliver. And 12 months later, there's a huge amount more substance than when people joined 12 months ago. And so to remind you, everything that you get, there's 5 steps. You get very clear on your outcomes. You get very clear on your starting point, which is a collaboration between us and Calio. You get a wealth plan to get from A to B. You get the monthly accountability, mindset, and execution, which is driven by myself and the team. And then you get the investment rhythms, which also happens monthly, so that you're getting measurable progress. There's the home study courses, which are given to you for free, but ultimately to provide you the substance, should you want that substance. And in total, the final question I ask you is, some people will see this as, oh, it's going to cost me $5,000. I say to you, what is the cost of your dreams? What is the value of your dreams? And what would you do? If you could be part of a system that would help you get there 5 times quicker, simpler, and safer, is it something that you would invest in for you and your family? If it resonates, go to diversificationmastermind.com. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all. Shane, I'm not sure if there's any questions. I know there was quite a few comments being put in. I know people have been posting on the WhatsApp groups, etc. I've gone way over time, which I apologize. But, one of the things that I'm most excited about and most grateful for is actually our mastermind. When Shane and I put it together back in, it's actually funny enough, Michael, if you're still here, it actually was Ryan Pinnock's idea, to be honest, because he literally said, you need a group, for your top end clients of like-minded people who kind of want their hand held in a group together to get results. And, working with Ryan Pinnock, Shane and I put together the mastermind, and, it's just 12 months later, it's just been phenomenal. And it's something I'm so grateful for, and probably why I apologize for speaking for the last hour and a half and, giving away so much information. But, I just want to share with people what it's all about. So anyway, apologies if I spoke too much. But over to you, Shane, if there's questions I haven't answered.
Well, yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks for always bringing your energy and your commitment to these things. So just quickly, before I ask, I just want to do a quick sound check because I've got very unstable internet at the moment. Is it all coming through okay?
We can hear you loud and clear, yeah.
All right, perfect. So these are sort of the frequently asked questions we get around the mastermind. The one is, I'm not sure if I qualify for this. I do have investments, but I'm not a sophisticated investor. What should I do?
So like I said already, rather than unqualify yourself, if you own a property or you've been investing, if you're wanting to, build passive income, and, particularly if you prepare to be part of a group, if you're coachable and, etc., You'll be surprised, in terms of, not everyone thinks, oh, I need $100 million. That's not necessarily the case. And one of the things that I would recommend is, rather than, the greatest risk in life is to risk nothing. And so set up a meeting, have a one-to-one, see if it resonates, and we'll take it from there in terms of, and one of the things that I also find, if you do set up a meeting and it's not right for you, quite often we can help point you in the right direction anyway.
Awesome. I'm really busy and time poor. How much time will this require?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and I get asked this all the time. I tend to say to people, you're looking at 3 to 4 hours a month, as a good, you can obviously spend quite a lot more if you want to on the home study course, etc. But I'd say 3 to 4 hours a month in terms of that process. And, people go, oh, but I don't have 3 to 4 hours a month. And I sort of go, well, I can pretty much guarantee your freedom is not going to change in 10 years if you can't invest 3 to 4 hours a month.
Cool, awesome. Why should I invest this money in the mastermind and not just in an investment?
Look, this is where it comes down to pure, simple maths. Again, most people that are running around on their own, and I can go into all the stats and analysis, but most people are getting returns. I mean, just today we were talking to people. They've got a property in England. They're getting about a 4% return. Plus, they've got to pay their accountant's fees. So not only do they have lower returns plus a lot of hassle, if they could be earning 10% plus, which, by the way, Gary Sachs literally taught people how to do in London in the month of August as part of the mastermind, with no hassle, that's double the return they're getting. And then the question I'd have for you, Shane, is, can you afford not to?
Yeah, exactly. So the next questions, we often get a lot of questions around Wealth Going Global and asset class mastery and how it's part of the mastermind. So if you could just explain that.
Let me just show you quickly. I'll pull this up, and I've got the Wealth Going Global course here. So you basically go into the course, you get started, you choose your countries, your currencies. So just by the way, if you go into any of these, and you'll go into it, and then it's basically got the lesson. You can learn the lesson, plus it's got the materials, so you can go and look at all the materials. So it makes your life very easy. But you basically got the countries, the currencies, you got the assets, you got the partners, you got the time. The part I love most, Shane, is at the end. I literally go here, and I mean, this is why you're an amazing person. I don't know how you did this, but like I literally walk away with my own, literally wealth plan. So it's my why, my how, and my what, all on one page. And again, people go, oh, but I need a 50-page plan. No, you don't. One page. Simplicity is power. And then I go, okay, well, what's my investment strategy? Where should I invest? I go, what about if you had an investor strategy report? And you literally go into that, and and I pin both these on my wall, my wealth plan and my investor strategy report. And there's my investor strategy report. These are the countries I've chosen based on the knowledge that I've got between residential, commercial, and alternative, my top currencies plus my top 15 assets. And I literally walk away with that. So back to answer your question, Shane, these are what we call home study courses, where people can go. It's got a huge amount of knowledge. You can walk away with the plans. It gives you the substance. And then equally on the asset mastery, each month we go deep for for 90 minutes in one asset. We've already done 8 of the different assets. People say, what happens after the 15? Well, 2 things. One is new assets need to be reviewed and whatever. And equally, after about a 15 to 18 month cycle, you'll want to go back to previous assets because things will change and you want to learn again, etc. So it's an ongoing cycle. I mean, it's what I've been doing for 28 years. Trust me, the moment you think you know everything, you know nothing. Like, it's literally like, it's the substance.
Cool.
I said too much there, Shane. The best way to describe it is the mastermind is the building that we build on top of a solid foundation, and Wealth Going Global and Asset Mastery is the solid foundation. And, the building is the execution, which is the mastermind.
Awesome. So a question we get here, is the mastermind South African focused?
Not really. So again, we've got people in the mastermind from Ireland, England, Italy, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Zambia, South Africa. So I mean, South Africa is just one of the countries. We're not focused on South African assets, and we primarily focused on England, Australia, America. Which one I'm missing? Europe. So we first world countries, first world assets, first world income. And it's one of the reasons why we've got such an incredible group of people from the Mastermind around the world, because they want to invest in first world assets, not emerging markets. But we do have a lot of experience to help people in emerging markets know how to invest in the first world. It's what we've done for more than 2 decades.
Awesome. What is the relationship with Calio Capital?
So look, I've been through it a number of times, and we've known them for more than 10 years now. I don't know exactly when I first met them, but certainly 10 years plus. They only manage 60 families in terms of their family office. And they see how the world's changing. They see how the digital adoption's changing. So this was a bit of a step in that direction for them to join our mastermind and to provide their services to all of our mastermind participants. And so really it's a bit of a hand in glove operation. And, where we help on the property side, they help with everything else: tax structuring, portfolio analysis, if you've got equities or pension plans or anything like that. They help with the wealth plan, and then even, they bring us good quality assets. Like I said to you, we've got some good assets coming from them, which is really exciting. So it's been an amazing partnership, and one that I'm truly grateful for. And quite frankly, one that most people, including myself, you just don't get access to a family office,
Yeah, exactly. So this one comes up quite a bit. It says, I really need accountability. Will you hold me to account?
Yeah, look, it's one of those things where it's a hard one, because some people resonate with the carrot, some resonate with the stick. I resonate with the fact that if you join the mastermind, I'm going to do what I can do. There's only so much I can do, but I'm going to do what I can do to get you results. And some people, they automatically get into momentum, and some need a bit of a kick up the butt. We try our best, whatever works. But, at the end of the day, I'm not very good for excuses. There's no such thing as an excuse in my world.
Awesome. And then do you have a payment plan?
There's an option. So if you book a call and you do qualify, there is an option for a payment plan. More than 90% of people, make the one-off payment because it just makes more financial sense, and they also make the financial commitment and they're fully engaged. However, saying that, we've had a few people that have come in, and some of them have been, phenomenal participants in the mastermind for whatever, they've got different reasons, etc. So it's kind of a what's the word called? A case-by-case study, but we don't want it to be prescriptive in terms of the process. But it's sort of back to what I already said earlier. We want it to be, we want it to be affordable, but not too affordable. And ultimately, it's someone's making an investment in their future.
Awesome. Yeah, then the last one is I can't make one of the available time slots to see Scott. What options do I have?
Look, just reach out to one of the team members, reach out to myself or Shane or Alex. Type in Mastermind if you're still here, or if you haven't, send me. You've got my number. Send me a WhatsApp. In terms of the process, maybe Alex, if you can, chuck in your details as well in terms of that process. And just reach out to one of us. And obviously, this will be recorded, so people might be watching the recording. Just reach out to us and find a time. We do use Calendly. Or one of those type services to book it. And unfortunately, I run, my life is extremely busy and different time zones and everything else. But we do try and make a couple of slots available as and when we've got gaps or spaces, to be able to onboard people.
Perfect. Yep. So that's all for now, Scott.
Cool. One last thing I think, which is important, Shane, is that Alex and I work very closely together as a team. And it's kind of symbiotic. He does some meetings, I do some meetings in terms of people, what we call the qualification meetings, because particularly if people have been, through this entire call, there's nothing I can really share too much more about the mastermind. It is what it is. There's 5 steps, and if it resonates with you and you qualify, you're gonna come on the journey. And if it doesn't resonate with you and you don't qualify, well, there's not much more to discuss. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, Shane. Well, look, thank you very much for your time. Thanks. As always, you're a wonderful partner, and I appreciate everything you've done to help people achieve and get the results. To all of you who are still here, it's wonderful to have you. I hope that you've got great insights. I hope that I've lived up to my apology right up front, which was to share in detail what we're doing and how we're doing it. No one can accuse me now of, or Shane for that matter, of not saying, hey, this is what we do, without it sort of being, hidden behind a long education series or even a 6 weeks module in Wealth Going Global. So it's out there now in terms of what people want, but it doesn't change the value of it, and it certainly doesn't change the nature that it's not for everybody. You have to be able to qualify to be able to get in, but at least people have the knowledge. Maybe it's aspirational. Maybe it's a bit like me, if you don't qualify yet or it's not quite ready for you. I loved Richard Branson, and I always wanted to meet Richard Branson. And, I had this goal to go out and meet Richard Branson. And I did that, in 10 or 11, I managed to, get to an event where he was, and, literally I saw him speak. Like that was me meeting Richard Branson. And, and then a couple of years later, I literally saw a video with Roger Hamilton on Necker Island. I was like, what? Can you even do that? Like, I didn't even know that was possible. And so I got hold of Roger, and I was like, how did you do this? And he said, no, well, I had to join Mavericks, and, it cost $40,000 to be part of Mavericks. And I was like, oh my word, like not only do you have to qualify, but you got to have $40,000 and so again, I didn't have the money or the ability, but I set a goal, I set an intention, and, I did it within 3 years. And I managed to go to Necker Island twice, which was a phenomenal experience and literally a life-changing experience for me, because again, you put yourself in the room where you're the dumbest, poorest person. And by the way, not only Rich Branson, I told you, John sold his business for $800 million, and his company was literally a call center. And when you meet incredible people like that, Jeff Walker, one of the best internet marketers in the world, was there, and you literally meet these people, and then it's like, hi, I'm Scott Picken. They're like, who's that? And I'm like, don't worry. But the point being is that, like, you can only ever get better. And so maybe, I finish off with that story, because it's all about setting intention and ultimately achieving what you want. And, no matter what you want in life, my father always said that where there's a will, there's a way. And with that, Shane, I'll shut up.
Awesome, Scott. Well, thanks again for bringing all your energy. It's been an informative evening, and it's been great. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely day, and whatever you do in your life, make sure you take action. And the greatest risk in life is to risk nothing. That's what's got me quite a long way in life. Cheers.
Cheers.